I'm Becky. Hi. I have been working with human design for about 6 years, coming up to 6 years now, so quite a while. And a little bit of background, I guess, about me. I started originally as a yoga teacher.
Mhm.
And I found human design through that process. Helpfully, it was also a time where we were going into lockdown as well, and I had absolutely nothing else to do. So I had lots of time on my hands to go and deep dive into different topics, and human design was one of those topics.
Mhm.
Um, but what really captured my attention and imagination, first and foremost, with it was that it was all about being really curious with yourself.
Mhm.
So, whereas a lot of philosophical and astrology based systems are quite dogmatic and quite strict, human design is much more about exploration and self exploration. And what it kind of gives to people is this ability or this permission or this validation to be like, I'm going to just be really curious with who I am, what I'm here for, what feels good for me, what I can sense, and how I can use my intuition a lot more as well. So it's really one of those systems that crosses the barrier between kind of the science and math side of it, which is the astrology and astronomy, and then the
Mhm.
philosophy side of it, which is all about being really open and curious and exploring.
Fascinating already. And I think what's really lovely about it, that, and I have to say, I don't know loads, I just know the kind of the basics. And Natalie, who works on our team, obviously had a session with you herself
Yeah.
and spoke so highly of it. And I think it's really about when you become a parent, you need to be able to like look within yourself for your own intuition and try and kind of block out the outside noise sometimes, but also look at
Yeah.
the new person in front of you. And I feel like this is a perfect way to kind of give you permission to do that. We shouldn't need permission, but kind of how
Yeah.
it
It
is.
is, it is. It's all about what can I sense, what can I pick up, what can I feel, what do I
Mhm.
intuitively know already, and what
Yeah.
can I intuitively trust within that, so that, we're so good at reading energy as human beings anyway, but we've just been kind of fobbed off really with the fact that we've got to look externally for answers all the time, even though our bodies are already telling us what we already know. And really, it's just a system that brings us back to that inner energy through very practical, experimental, and yeah, much more easy to grasp away than
Yeah.
astrology, for example.
Hmm. And it's kind of ironic, isn't it, coming onto a hub full of information of telling you things that they're
Reading it.
definitely, I think this is, it actually brings a lot of what we want people to do, to listen, to, yes, take the evidence and information, but also it's just as important to have that intuitive sense as well.
Yeah, and it's all to do with as well, the fact that we're not all the same.
Yeah.
We are all made completely differently. We know that from a physical perspective. We can see that people are different, but human design gives us a way of understanding how people's energy is different as well. So yeah, really beautiful fit.
So can you tell me what it means to look at human design? What are you looking at exactly?
So you're looking at four different main systems. You're looking at astrology, you're looking at the Kabbalah, you're looking at the Chinese I Ching, which is a system of philosophy, and the chakra system from Vedic
Mhm.
and yoga backgrounds. So what it does is it brings all of that information, all of that data together and puts it into a map or a blueprint, which looks a bit like a human body, just with a load of lines and circles and shapes and things defined and undefined. So it gives us like a circuitry based on the astrology and the energetics at the time that that
Mhm.
person was born.
And that's physically on a piece of paper. You would write those things down.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as you type in your birth time, your birth date, your birth location, it's all populated from the data that's already there, gives you a chart, gives you a map, and then you have the brilliant experience of trying to decode
Mhm.
what on earth that map says. Exactly like you would if you picked up a map, like an ordnance survey map, you'd see all the little symbols. And most of us aren't trained in map reading these
Mhm.
days, so we would pick up the map and go, "Oh, what on earth does this mean?" And that's where you have to start unpicking it a bit.
Okay, and that's what you do with people. You can help them unpick it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there's loads of free resources out there. So I always encourage people to start with the free resources
Hmm.
purely because they can then get a sense as to whether it's correct for them or not. They
Hmm.
can feel whether this is something that I'm going to really resonate with
Yeah,
or something that is not going to fit me. And both of those answers are totally fine.
yeah. Okay. And so you've obviously focused on birth date first. And so obviously we're here talking about babies and how, as a parent, we can maybe be thinking about already before they can even talk to us or tell us anything, but just by going by the human design information, how could that help a parent, a new parent?
Yeah, so the first thing that springs to mind is sleep. Some people are designed to sleep lots and lots through the day, lots and lots through the night. They will sleep and sleep and sleep because that's how they restore themselves. And humanly, that's how we restore ourselves as well.
Hmm.
But there's a big difference between energetic bodies that have defined sacrals, which means they have lots and lots and lots of access to energy,
Right.
which theoretically means that they don't sleep quite as well or don't sleep quite as much. And when they do need to sleep, they need to have burnt off all of their energy throughout the day. So if you've got a baby that won't sleep, it's probably, on an energetic sense at least, to do with the fact that they need to have all their stimulus burned off before they will go to sleep. Whereas some people, and that, this goes for adults as well, um, need a lot more rest, a lot more downtime, a lot more settling down before they can actually sleep. So there's two different instantly types of energy bodies that require very different amounts of sleep and very different ways of sleeping. The other things as well, you know, some energetic bodies are born with much stronger immune systems. They have
Hmm.
what's called a defined spleen, and their defined spleen basically gives them survival energy to start with. So they've got that inbuilt rather than having to pick up the germs from other kids and other babies to process their immune system and build up their immune system.
Right.
Um, and also like things like mental stimulation, really kind of great for some babies, and other babies are just not interested. And that is another thing that comes out in the charts. Some people have got defined heads and third eyes. They need lots of stimulus, and some have not, and they don't. They need to be exploring, they need to be playing, they need to be feeling, they need to be in the moment a little bit more rather than distracted or using their brain quite so much. So there's loads of different ways that can start to come out.
It's so fascinating. And it's funny because we always say there's no parenting manual. There's no babies don't come out with a manual. However, this sounds like a bit of a manual.
It is. I always call it a bit like a life manual because
Yeah.
your design doesn't change, and all that happens is life changes, and we move away from our natural processes and our natural environments and our natural relationships, and we start to make things maybe more complicated or more conditioned than they need to be. And this is kind of like a manual to bring you back to
Hmm.
who you are.
Yeah. And what about the parent's energy? I'm thinking myself as a parent as well. You know, how is it important to know your own as well as your babies and your
Yeah, I
family?
Yeah, I would say it's actually most important to know your own when you're starting out, because what you can understand from your own is that it's not that babies start off with no energy,
Hmm.
because they've still got energy bodies, but they're so open and so receptive to their environment, and they're
Yeah.
sucking in all the energy from everyone else. So
Hmm.
if you have got a baby that's surrounded by lots of people who are out of alignment, that's not necessarily going to be a great environment for them to find themselves as they're growing up, because they're not going to necessarily have the access to the confidence or the creativity or the rest time that they need. Because if you've got parents that are living, you know, that in their own conditioning through no fault of their own, that need to be productive or don't understand their self-worth or don't understand their rest patterns and things, all that happens is it gets imprinted back down a generation, essentially.
Hmm.
So getting to know yourself in that is probably the most important part of it, because then you can understand what's my energy, where have I picked up patterns, where have I picked up beliefs, where have I picked up stories, and do I want to pass those stories on to my children, or am I going to role model what that looks like to live in a healthy alignment for myself?
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you put kind of a more personal question, please? If you don't want to answer, it's absolutely fine. But I just thought when you started kind of looking into your own human design, kind of what changed for you? Were there some like practical things?
Yeah. So when I did my human design, I found out that I was a manifester, and there are 5 different main human design types. But the manifestors are quite a low percentage of the population. They're about 8%. And they're designed to initiate, they're designed to start things and get the ball rolling on things, but they're not there to carry through energy for other people. So I've always known that I've had a relatively low energetic battery throughout my entire life. But when that was presented to me on a piece of paper, I was like, okay, this is permission for me to actually live in a way that I know naturally my energy wants to live in. So I was working a 9 to 5. I had been for kind of 10 years or so before that, which wasn't great for my energy because I was expected to be creative on tap, and I was expected to be really busy. And if I got work done, there was just more work given to me rather than just letting me rest after I'd done the work, which seemed really alien to me. Like, I've done my work, why would I not just rest?
Yeah.
And so it became this massive journey, really, of unpicking all the things that I'd been told were like things to celebrate. I got a great job and I was earning good money, but I was absolutely shattered at the same time, and it wasn't really fulfilling me. So it gave me permission, really, to unpick all of those things that I thought I should be and lean into the things that I knew I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine that's quite a big journey to go through if you just become a new parent as well, or you're like, and would you recommend doing it in pregnancy? I mean, it's obviously
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
safe to
yeah,
do.
I think it's also a really nice time to deeply connect with yourself when you're pregnant. You've got another soul to connect with at the same time, and it's a really lovely practice that's not meant to be heavy. It's not meant to be like, there's no expectation placed upon you. There's no stress placed upon you. It's just, let's be curious about who we are and what we instinctively already know about ourselves, but
Mm.
this just reminds us of what we're here for.
Yeah, and I imagine there's some kind of traits, if that's what you can call them, that you kind of beat yourself up about, and actually it's something that is
Mm-hmm.
a quality, really, and it's something that is just normal within yourself.
Yeah,
And you mentioned that there's 5 different, what did you call them?
energy
Sorry.
types,
Energy types. Can you just run through what they are briefly?
of
And
course.
also, my question was about babies. Would you say a baby was one of those who's early on? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell them straight away as soon as I kind of reel them off. So the manifestors are impactful. So they're the 8% of the population worldwide that when they're born, they create an impact of some description. So it's quite common for firstborns to be manifestors, actually, because that does change the dynamic of everything around them. They're impactful, they're meant to initiate, they're meant to start things off, they're meant to get the ball rolling on things, and they're there to be disruptive to some level. That's not to say that that's a bad thing, but it's more they disrupt the kind of status quo of things.
Mm-hmm.
Manifesting generators are generally quite hyperactive. They flit between lots of different things. They've got loads and loads of different energy. So that's like the second energy type. Lots of different energy, flit between lots of different interests, really interested in trying and testing lots of different things and dipping their toe into things. So they tend to be a little bit more chaotic. Generators have lots and lots of energy, but aren't quite as chaotic as the manifesting generators. So they have consistent energy and can go and go and go. You'll definitely be able to tell a generator child more than a baby, because they'll want to be doing things from 7 o'clock in the morning till about 10 o'clock at night, and you can't tire them out. And then you have projectors, and projectors are really, really interesting. They make up about 20%. So manifesting generators and generators are the biggest proportion. They're about 70%, just over 70% of the population together. They're very similar types. The projectors that sit underneath that are about 20%, and they are our wisdom keepers. They're meant to sit and watch and observe and be very wise and step back from all of this buzzy energy and doing energy that the other two manifesting generators and generators are getting involved in. And they really need time to be by themselves. So the projectors and the manifestors need a lot of time by themselves. The manifesting generators and generators need a lot of time kind of with each other, bouncing around, bouncing off of each other, getting their direction from being a bit buzzy. And then reflectors at the very end of that, they're only about 1%, so they're pretty rare. They have no energy defined within them, so they have no centers defined within them, which means that they have a totally open energy body, which means that their environment and the people that they're around absolutely shape everything about that person. So they're the rarest types, and they're known as the mirrors because they can kind of just mirror or be a chameleon in any situation that they're in, and you won't necessarily know that they're a reflector. They will just pick up and absorb on the energy that you've got.
Interesting. And do you know any famous people that are reflectors?
Yeah, so Sandra Bullock is a reflector. So like thinking about the acting and taking on different, like she's had a massive variety of different roles.
Yeah.
But the reflector that I really love to watch is, and I don't like football, but was Jurgen Klopp, who
Oh, yeah.
managed Liverpool, because you would see him at the sideline and he displayed the classic kind of tendencies of reflectors, which are all about bringing community together, like really knitting community together. But also, if you watch his facial expressions, reflectors are all about awe and inspiration, and he would very often be like, oh, and in this like joyous sort of state on the sideline. So he was my favourite to watch.
Yeah, yeah, super interesting. I feel like it's quite interesting to know who the people in the limelight are and each of their. I'm going to look that up after.
Yeah, you all want to go on. Everyone always wants to go on a deep dive afterwards. Like, oh, I wonder what my friend is. I wonder what their partner is. I wonder what everyone gets their chart.
So, the practicalities of finding out your human design, can you take me through the steps? So if someone's kind of had a look at some free resources, which would be great to have your recommendations, I can post them on links underneath this. If they then want to go ahead, book a session, like what does that mean? What does that look like?
So there are two ways that I tend to do sessions. The first way is that we can do a general reading. So in a general reading, we go through everything to do with the chart that's going to be important for getting the first fundamental foundations in place. So that goes for kind of energy type, how I use my energy, what's my strategy, what's my intuition, how's my body speaking to me, what cues am I meant to be picking up on, all of these sorts of things. What type of environment you're meant to be in, what your life theme is. So it gives you a good understanding of what you need to do to actually implement this information, because that's where it comes alive, when you actually implement it rather than just learn about it.
Yeah.
And the other type is like a drop-in, I call it a golden hour reading, where people can just come with their questions about things. So rather than it being a reading, it's like, I've got this problem, or I've got this situation, or I've got this challenge. What does human design and astrology tell me about this, and how can we use that as a way of navigating through, and really mindfully and consciously navigating through, rather than it just getting kind of out of hand and away from us. So they're the two best ways that I work, either readings or quote. Bring me a load of questions and I will happily help you implement a load of the answers.
Yeah, brilliant. And with the original kind of reading one, if someone has just had a baby and they want to kind of do themselves and their baby, would they have to book 2 sessions, or would you do it into one?
No, yeah, we do it into one, and we look very much about how we, like, you both talking to each other, like how, because what's really beautiful about the charts is that you can layer them up. And when you layer them up, you see what's yours, what's baby's, and also how that's coming together and what dynamic that's forming. And it starts to build a really, really strong bond between, I understand myself and I also understand them, even though I know that their energy is completely different to me, which 9 times out of 10 they are different, are very different. And that's the whole point in our kind of existence, I guess, teaching each other.
Yeah. And at what point could someone do this if they've got a newborn? Could it literally be any time?
Yeah, anytime. I would say when you feel like you've got some space and mental capacity to be
Yeah,
able to absorb,
definitely.
because there's always a lot of information and there's always a lot of things going on, but there's no right or wrong time. I would just trust the timing on things when you feel
Yeah.
drawn to it.
And how much does it cost, please, for those sessions?
Yeah, so one-to-ones are an hour long and they're £100. They're recorded, so everything, you've not got to remember everything during the session, and you can keep going back whenever you want to. And I don't do anything where it's like we work together long term. It's more of a drop in when you need to drop in and drop out when you need to drop out. It's very fluid.
And that covers an initial reading, and then the golden hours would be the same
Yeah,
afterwards.
exactly. Yeah.
I think it's such a lovely gift idea for someone to,
Yeah.
obviously they've got to want to do it, but if you could ask for it, I guess, as a gift.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It is because this information never changes. So it is like an investment in yourself or an
Mhm,
investment in kind of remembering who you are in
mhm.
that sense.
And would someone need to fill in a questionnaire before they meet with you, or yeah, bring like
Yeah, so yeah, all the booking system is kind of set up so that it gets your birth details so that I can make sure all the charts are there. And then there's like some questions that are automated. So you just get to fill out as much as you want to or as little as you want to, so that we can make sure that we focus on the right things that are going to be helpful kind of in the moment rather than might be helpful 10 years down the line, you know.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And Stephanie, I have popped in the chat if you wanted to ask anything. Please don't feel any pressure, but I just wanted to make sure you had the opportunity if you did want to ask any more personal questions while we've got Becky here. I think that's answered all my questions to kind of keep this, a nice intro for people to just understand what it is, really.
Yeah. One thing that I did forget to mention when I was
Mm.
talking about centers was the voice center. And I think that's probably quite an important one for babies because if we've got a defined throat, which is about 70% of the population, we've got access to be able to speak, to communicate, to cry, to make noise. Like there's a lot of noise that comes out of defined throat.
Hmm.
When it's undefined, it forms very differently. So this can look like kind of delayed speak. It can look like speech impediments sometimes. It can look like just wanting to communicate in a very different way. So if that is something that people are experiencing and they see an undefined throat on the chart, don't be like alarmed that they might be a little bit slower at speaking, or they might kind of not make as much noise as the first one, or because again, use your intuition, but it might just be that is they're finding their own way of communicating rather than it being this natural way of communicating.
Wow, yeah, that's so relevant, isn't it? Like it's
Yeah,
yeah, I can think of lots of families in my head now that I support as a doula who that might well have been something that was affecting the baby.
yeah, yeah. And it just needs that safety and support in there so that
Yeah,
they can find their own way when they're ready.
yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much, Becky. It was really lovely
No
to chat to you and meet
problem.
you. We'll keep in touch, and I'm going to be booking on with you myself. So
It would be lovely
we'll
to
see
see you.
you soon.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
take care.
Take
Have a
care.
good day.
Bye.
Bye
And
bye.
you.